Hello, YouTube friends. Today I got a very interesting book for you. It's a comedy, it's science fiction, it's both. Check it out. So today I want to talk about a really funny book, a really cool book that I discovered. It's by the Polish author Stanislaw Lem. He wrote science fiction. He's most famous for Solaris, which spawned two very boring, very unfunny movies. And the book is not funny either. But he also wrote comedy occasionally. And the best of his comic works that I've yet encountered is this book called The Cyberiad, Fables for the Cybernetic Age. Stanislaw Lem was Polish and he wrote in Polish. So these books are in translation, and that's what I find the most remarkable thing about this book. It was translated by a guy named Michael Kandel, who I've never heard of, but this has got to be the most impressive feat of translation I've ever seen, because the book is filled with wordplay. It's very clever. It's very funny. I'll get to the translation in a little bit, but I want to talk about what it's about first. It's a collection of short stories, which I think science fiction works best in the short story format anyway, because it's all about ideas, and you can express an idea very succinctly in a story. And humor works well in short stories as well. It's about these two robots that are called Twirl and Klopausius, which are already funny names. And they're what's called constructors. The whole universe seems to be made up with robots in this world that he's created. And they're constructors, which means they are inventors. They build things. And they have a really funny relationship. They're best friends and they go everywhere together, but they also kind of hate each other and they're fiercely competitive. And that kind of love-hate relationship plays very heavily in the book and is pretty amusing at times. There's all kinds of different scrapes they get into. They're very outlandish. There's a lot of clever mathematical jokes. There's a lot of clever physics jokes. There's one really funny story where Twirl builds a 8-story thinking machine that continues to insist that the answer to 2 plus 2 is 7 and gets angry when contradicted, and they have to end up fighting the machine in order to take it down because it's so furious that they won't admit that 2 plus 2 is 7. So that's the kind of stories you're looking at here. They're really funny. But the one that I find really brilliant is there's one where Twirl builds a poetry machine, an electronic poetry machine, and you can already see where the problem is. You know, poetry is very hard to translate in the best of circumstances. So there's a lot of poetry in this one, and it's translated brilliantly. I want to give you an example. Klopausius, jealous and angry at Twirl's success in building a brilliant poetry machine, starts posing these ridiculous challenges to the machine. Klopausius says, "Have it compose a poem about a haircut, but lofty, noble, tragic, timeless, full of love, treachery, retribution, quiet heroism in the face of certain doom. 6 lines, cleverly rhymed, and every word beginning with the letter S." That's a tall order, and Stanislaw Lem presumably composes it brilliantly in Polish, but I only have the translation. And here's the translated poem that he came up with. "Seduced, shaggy Samson snored. She scissored short, sorely shorn. Soon, shackled slave, Samson sighed, silently scheming, sightlessly seeking some savage, spectacular suicide." I can't begin to imagine how that translation came about, how anyone could do that. It's genius. I've read several other works by Stanislaw Lem. Some of them are not funny, some of them are, but I always think the translations are brilliant. He loves wordplay. He loves playing around with language. And I don't know how you can get from Polish to English with those kind of translations, but whoever does it, I guess Michael Kandel in this case, but I don't know who does the other books, does a fantastic job. This is published by Harcourt. I think it's out of print. I was trying to buy a copy of it for someone a little while ago and couldn't find one, which is a real shame because you don't often find humor and science fiction melded as effectively as this is. It reminds me a little bit of Douglas Adams in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy trilogy, or I guess there's 5 books in that series, but I think of it as a trilogy. It's great use of kind of making fun of science fiction tropes and having these hilarious characters that he's created interact in a variety of situations. So if you want to read Stanislaw Lem, if you've heard about him maybe before, maybe you've seen the film Solaris and you've heard his reputation, I strongly recommend The Cyberiad. I don't recommend Solaris. I found it pretty dull. I found the movies based on it pretty dull. I think you can do a lot better. I plan on seeking out more of his works in the future and seeing if I can find anything to equal this. So far, I have not. But there you go, science fiction fans. I don't do a lot of science fiction reviews on this channel. I'm going to try to do more in the future. But I think this is a great, really good starting place for people who maybe want to dip their toe into the science fiction universe and don't want anything too heady or too thinky. Just want to play around a little bit with the genre. So that's my review for today. Hope you enjoyed it. I've been Logan Albright. I hope you will subscribe to my channel. If you have any other fun, humorous science fiction books, please list them in the comments. And I'll be back next week with more fun book reviews for you guys. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful weekend.